Hey, what's going on everyone? Today we have the meta snapshot for patch 14.20, where we're going to be cooking up comps harder than best in slot rumble. And there's been quite a shift because the patch recently was actually pretty big. Mage is very, very strong right now. I think Mage Reroll got to be the best comp. And oddly enough, this is a one-cost reroll. This is probably the first time in the set where we're going to be dominated by one-cost reroll. After that, Portal Ryze and Ryze Flex, I think he's the best 4-cost right now. He's got a great vertical trait in Portal, and he's got 2 different flex options, although the Preserver Ryze I think is the better version. And that brings us into the Faerie Kalista comp. Faerie Kalista, you play it the same way as you did 2 patches ago. Very, very solid stuff still, because they nerfed the comp initially and then reverted the nerf back. Deja Vu Galio gonna finish off the S tier, that's right. Hero augments are back, but luckily it's just Deja Vu Galio, which I think is very strong. There are other playable ones though, but most of them you'll see down here, like High Horsepower Lilia, Spider Queen Elise, Sweet Tooth Nunu. Those are pretty bad right now, so have no fear. On bunnymuffins.lol/meta, you'll know which ones to go for and which ones not to go for. In the A tier, we have Reroll Veigar, another version of Mage Reroll, but focused on 3 costs. Jinx Wukong, another 3-cost build. Molten Caramel Rumble, a decent hero augment right now. And then after that, Witchcraft, Fiora Karma, Karma Gwen Fiora, both solid comps still. I'd say it's weaker than last patch, but it still has its space in the meta. Warwick Reroll is one of the Exodia comps. Spin to win Wukong, very powerful too. Chrono Karma, not quite as Exodia-y as last time. Same with Reroll Hecarim. Both of these got nerfed a bit, but still solid options. Pyro Varus, very strong if you get +1 Pyro. Shapeshifter Flex, I think this might be one of the more underrated comps of the patch. 2 different ways to play it. We'll get into how to do that, plus everything else we see after the intro. Zap Attack Blitzcrank, decent. Sugarcraft, if you get the +1, and if you're on an item portal, it's going to be great. Multistriker Reroll, couple different versions of this. People are going Kassadin Akali again, but Ashe and Jax work too. Eldritch, if you get +1 Eldritch, solid vertical trait comp. Arcana Varus, got nerfed a bunch. Varus probably got hit the most out of all the 4 costs. So both Arcana Varus and like Frost Pyro Olaf with the Varus as well. Dropping down to the low A tier, maybe even the high B tier. I'm going to leave them in low A for now though. And then lastly, we have Blaster, Ezreal, and Hwei. If other reroll comps get popular, this could see a bit more playtime, but I'd say it's a situational comp at best right now. In the B tier, Warriors got dropped a bunch. Kogmaw reroll solid. Akali Nyla, not the best. Fast 9, highly situational. Pillars of Flame Shen, playable, but still not great. Built different, bad. Syndra Cassiopeia bad, and Witchiwalla bad. Yeah, don't play maybe half the Bs and don't play any of the Cs right now. And then for comps to one trick, I'd recommend going Mage Reroll, Ryze Flex, and Faerie Kalista. I'd say these 3 comps you could play in like maybe 80+% of your games. The Exodia comps are listed over here: Warwick, Hecarim, Fast 9, and Wukong. And then lastly, I added beginner comps, which are comps I recommend for players below Diamond to climb with. I think Mage and Multistriker Reroll are going to be the easiest to play while also still yielding pretty good results. I'd say it's like the best bang for your buck, but we're going to go over how to play every single comp. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. I like card games. I also like Warhammer 40k. What if I told you that there's a hot new game that combines both of these together in Warhammer 40k Warpforge? It's got great artwork, great voiceovers, unique battlegrounds, and music for each faction, making it perfect for any Warhammer fan. Unlike other card games, you could get your warlord onto the battlefield to fight alongside your troops, which brings more mechanics, more outplay potential, and more options than a traditional card game. Right now, Warforged has one of the most diverse faction rosters of any Warhammer game, featuring 10 factions. My favorite faction is gotta be Tau, and a classic matchup I had growing up was between me and my brother, where he was playing Tyranids. So if you're looking for factions to play, those are the 2 that I'm most excited to use. Did I mention that this game is also free to play? Any player can quickly obtain a starter deck for their chosen faction, progress through some campaigns, and earn more cards. And if you didn't like your starting faction, switching factions is easy too, as there are free starter decks available for each. There are many other cool modes you can explore, such as draft mode, alliances, and much more, and this is all available through a fully cross-platform PC and mobile ecosystem. So you could enjoy either long play sessions at home on your PC, or a quick game on the go on your phone. So whether you're a die-hard Warhammer fan, or just love great card games, right now is the perfect time to get into Warforged, as it's free to play, easy to get started. So download the game today using the link in the description below, claim your starter deck, and start building your perfect deck. So Reroll Mages, this is a comp of the patch. You want to focus on those 1-cost rerolls. I know we haven't played this in a while, so just to remind everyone, 1 cost reroll. You want to save up all your gold in the early game. You want to roll down to 30 gold at stage 3-1. That's going to be the last level you're going to be level 4. Hopefully you hit a lot of Soraka's and Seraphines. Sometimes you might even 3-star them in that roll down. But if not, you econ back up, wait until you're above 50 gold, and then roll down to 50 every single turn until stage 4-1, where you roll down until you hit Soraka and Seraphine 3-star. You don't have to go for both all the time, but it definitely is a lot better to have both of them than just one of them. But the tricky part of this comp is knowing when to give up on one of them, because you still need Vex 3-star to really get those first places, because Vex is just one of the best tanks in the game right now because mages are so good. Drop a Crown Guard, Gargoyle Stoneplate, and Ionic Spark on Vex, and you're going to be more than good to go. For Soraka and Seraphine, mana item plus AP, going to be fantastic for them. I like putting my utility items on the Seraphine and my like pure AP items on my Soraka, so if you get like a Static Shiv, and you don't have an Ionic Spark, you could drop it on Seraphine. Morello I like on Seraphine because she hits a lot of units. But in general, on all mage units, AP is the best stat on them. They could use it better than any other trait in the game because mages cast twice, so you kind of get like a double dip on the ability power. So that's why Archangels and Rabadons are so good on both these backline carries. But essentially, if you ever get a good mage start, just hard force this comp from the start. You could always get the items later. You just need mana item plus 2 AP items. And while I do prefer a Shojin, you can just build an adaptive helm on them. It's more than good enough, especially since you don't really need any cloaks apart from getting like an Ionic Spark and maybe a Vex item. But pretty much you just want to run all the 7 mages. If you want to copy this image later on when you're in game, add it to your team planner, head on over to bunnymuffins.lol/meta, where we update the meta snapshot every single Friday. I've been doing this for 5 years now, and it's the longest running player run tier list. By the way, if you ever get a mage emblem, Tahm Kench uses it really well. You could replace Rumble with Tahm Kench just to get yourself some Vanguard. You lose Sugarcraft, but Tahm Kench casting twice is really nice for a lot of stuns, and also any legendary unit uses mage emblem pretty well. Like Xerath uses it amazingly. Morgana is very good with it. There are a couple others that work really well with it. You could always data check on teamfight.lol, go to stats, items, type in like mage emblem, and then click here. You'll see like the most used units with it, and also see who has the highest average placement. Like Tahm Kench 4.28, it's built the most, but you'll see that like Xerath 3.78, but it's built a lot less. Obviously you don't get Xerath every game, but he's very good with it. Next comp up we have is the Portal Ryze build. Portal Ryze is going to be the same as the Portal Ryze from the previous month. So if you have not tried this yet, if you ever get a Portal emblem, just hard force this comp. It's really, really powerful. Even though they nerfed a lot of the crests, including Portal crests, it's still one of the best performing augments right now, just because 8 Portal is so strong still. I know there's a lot going on in the screen right now, but you essentially just want to play all the Portal units and then add in one of these 4 units in the top left. That's why they all have the emblem on them. You could kind of flex between each of these. So if you want Witchcraft, you could add a Morgana. If you want Shapeshifters, you could add Nasus. Mages, Nami. I think Nami's the best one, but you need to have Nora for it to work. And then lastly, Diana's good because she's a Bastion with Taric. But very simple comp to play. You just need the Portal Spatula. And then you just fast 8, roll down for the board here, get anti-heal item on Ryze plus ability power items, get random tank items on whoever you want, and then enjoy the free top 4 in most cases. Next comp up we have is a Ryze Flex build, much more difficult to play because you have to navigate the early game. You can't reach free power spikes such as 6 Portal. You have to get a lot of expensive units such as the Preservers. And you also have to get Ryze and decide if you want to go 4 Scholar. If you get +1 Scholar, you have to decide if you can go 6 Scholar. If you don't get any of the Preservers, you have to be like, oh, maybe I have to go for the Arcana build instead. I'd say right now the Preserver build is much stronger than the Arcana version. Maybe this one is S tier, this one is A tier. Both still playable, and obviously you need to make the best of your situation. If you have none of the Preservers, but you have a free Tahm Kench too, just go for the version down here and level up with your extra gold. But if you can help it, if you have to decide between the 2 comps, go for the Preserver version. Items for Ryze are going to be the same as the Portal build. You just want anti-heal plus ability power items, and then just find some tank. Whoever you get 2-star, throw the tank items on them and call it a day. Next comp up we have is going to be the Faerie Kalista build. We have the 5 Fairy version and the 7 Fairy version. If you do not get a Fairy emblem, go for the 5. If you do get a Fairy emblem, go for the 7. But both things you want the same early game. So Rage Blades in the early game to eventually put on Kalista, that's going to be what you want to do. And you also need tank items for your Rakan. Stoneplate's going to be the best tank item for him. After that, either Warmogs or Redemption. And then find a way to get armor penetration. That could be either through a Last Whisper on your Kalista or an Even Shroud on your secondary tank. You could even drop the Even Shroud on Rakan sometimes if you don't have any tank items at all. But I kind of have these two images next to each other just to show you like different variations of what you can do. Like for example, if you have the Last Whisper, don't build the Even Shroud. But if you do have an Even Shroud, build double Rage Blade. It's going to be the best way to build Kalista. And my favorite part about this comp is that you really only need 4 items. So that's why this comp is really easily one-tricked, because you could play it every single game because you don't need that many items for it. But just do standard fast 8 for this. Sometimes you need to stabilize a little early, sometimes you don't. If you want to see a big replay of it, check out this video over here. It's on the website and on the YouTube channel. But next comp up we have is Deja Vu Galio. So this comp is easy to play, but you can only play it with the Deja Vu Galio augment. It essentially turns Galio, who's normally a melee Vanguard, into a backline auto attack carry that's like a mage. The best item combination on Galio by far, and you absolutely need these 3 items, is Rage Blade, Hextech, Gunblade. If we look at Galio's items with Deja Vu and Galio in the Data Explorer, you'll see that there are around 1,000 games of Deja Vu in Master Plus right now, but there are 2,000 copies of Rage Blades. That means that people are building double Rage Blade on the Galio. And yeah, you pretty much need those items. Just 2 Rage Blades plus the Hextech Gunblade. Like, people try other stuff because they couldn't get these perfect items. Are you gonna lose if you have like a Giant Slayer or a Hand of Justice? No, but it isn't the same. So that's why augments like Pandora's items is really good in this comp. Anger Issues is fantastic for this. And also a lot of Ornn items work too. I don't know if you noticed, but as we scroll down a little bit, like a lot of Ornn items pop up and they do pretty decently. Like Sniper's Focus, Fishbones, Wit's End, all of these do really well too on the Galio. But this is a very easy comp to play. All you really have to do is do a 2-cost reroll, get Galio 3-star. Sometimes you get Rumble 3-star, sometimes you get Mordekaiser 3-star. Whoever you get 3-star in the front, throw your tank items on them. Obviously, Mordekaiser is going to be the best one to do because he's a 3-cost. But as long as you have a solid front line and you have a 3-star Galio, you're going to be getting top 4 in a lot of different games. But I would only go for this if you get the augment early, obviously, and if you have at least one component of the Rage Blade. Like, ideally, you just have a Rage Blade at the start, but we can't always be so lucky. Next comp up we have is Reroll Veigar. This one is very similar to the mage build. You just do 5 to 7 mages. If you get a +1 mage, it's obviously amazing, but if you don't, it's not the end of the world. You mainly just go 5 mages unless you hit Nora. Vex is going to be the main tank in the front. For Yuumi, you could either put it on your Vex or on your backline. I like putting it on my Vex because I think as like a solo frontline sometimes, I know you have other tanks in the team comp, but with the Stoneplate, you leave her up in the front. If she's holding your Ionic Spark, I like dropping it on the Vex. If not, maybe you could put it on your backline unit. Because the Ionic Spark, you want it to live as long as possible so that you could reduce everyone's magic resistance. But you could go for this comp if you get a blue buff early, or if you're going mages and you're like, hey, I'm not hitting any of my Seraphines or Sorakas, but I have a couple of Vexes and I randomly got a Veigar, like just go for the Veigar comp instead. Level up to level 7 and do a 3-cost reroll. Pretty simple to play, and it's a decently strong comp right now. Next one up we have is Jinx Wukong. I actually personally love this comp a lot. It's just a little weird to play because you need a lot of weird items like Runon's Hurricane and Rage Blade. You might build a Rage Blade early because you're going Kalista, but not too many people build a Runon's early on. I personally love the item and it actually performs pretty decently. However, I'm not going to build it every single game. And then for your Wukong, you really want as many stone plates as you can possibly get on him. At least 2, I would say. Because all the other tank items, while they're still usable on him, they're not really comparable at all. So you kind of need this weird combo on this comp. After that, you need some sort of armor penetration. You could get that through a Last Whisper on like a Kogmaw or something like that. Or you could put like an Even Shroud on Olaf. He's a pretty good holder for it. I know Twitch also reduces people's armor, but it's not enough because oftentimes Twitch dies. So you really want the armor penetration for more parts of the fight. Finish the comp off by adding in 4 Hunter, 4 Preserver. If you get a lot of extra items, throw them on like Olaf, Rakan, or Morgana. And this comp really gets super strong if you get stuff like Category 5. If you get Category 5 at the start of the game, also like, I hope everyone who is affected by the hurricane is fine. Like, they're probably not watching this video because I don't think they could play TFT if they like abandoned their home or whatever. But Honestly, if you get category 5 at the start of the game, you could just hard force this comp and no regrets there. If you get a +1 Hunter emblem, you could go for 6 Hunter. It's very powerful. Hunter emblem's really good on a lot of legendary units. Like we could do the same check here. We look at Hunter emblem, and you'll see that a lot of people put it on like Bard or Zillion because they just are played as the preservers in the comp. But if you ever get like a 2-star Briar, Smolder, Morgana, anything like that, it's going to be really, really, really effective on them, even if they don't have other traits that complement them. Another way to really unlock this comp is with the Spin to Win augment. We'll cover Spin to Win a bit later, so we'll wait till we get there. Next comp up we have is Molten Caramel Rumble. This one is going to be a hero augment comp where you just go Vanguards and Preservers. And you also have the 2 Sugarcraft so that he gets some stacks from the Sugarcraft trait. BT, I think, is the best item on Rumble. After that, I just like stacking AP on him, but there are a couple of different builds that I've seen work on Rumble. But he's generally going to be your primary carry. You could secondary Tristana, but people generally complement a Blaster with Rumble. So it could even be like a Varus. It could even be like a Smolder. Just any Blaster, really. But Tristana is useful because she's a 2-cost unit. So as you're doing a 2-cost reroll for your Rumble 3-star, sometimes you get a Tristana 3, and then you can use that and go from there. Next comp up we have is Witchcraft, Fiora, and Karma. We're going to combine this with the Flex, Karma, Fiora, Gwen. They're pretty much the same comp. One of them you play if you get +1 Witchcraft. The other one you play if you get none of that but have a lot of other items, because the Flex, Karma, Fiora, Gwen, this comp loves items. You could itemize like 5 different people. Morgana, Rakan, Gwen, Fiora, Karma. And in the Witchcraft version, it's really just Fiora, Karma, plus some random tank. I'd say when you go for this comp, prioritize both the Fiora and the Karma items. The tank items don't matter as much, and you don't know if you're going to go Gwen, but luckily Gwen can use all sorts of different items. Also, Thieves Gloves, very good in these 2 comps because Fiora and Gwen, or like any warrior actually, just use pretty much any item pretty decently. Same with a lot of your tanks. So just keep that in mind whenever you're going for these 2 comps. You want to be doing a standard level or a fast 8 when you play this, because you're mainly going for 4-cost units. We have like 4 of them over here. We have like 4 and 5 over here. And level 8 is just going to be the best time to roll for them. So make sure you have like a decently strong early game or a very powerful fast 8 augment. You might be wondering, what are the fast 8 augments? Let's take a look at what's going to be good for that right now. So normally I like to decide on 2-1 to get those econ augments. If we scroll down a bit, there's level up, but that's not so much for fast 8. That's more for other strategies. Anything that gives gold is pretty good, but the ones I like the most is like Slammin', Epoch. There's one other one that I really like. Patient Study, if you like to lose streak. There are some prismatic ones like Dual Purpose, Upward Mobility. Those are all very nice. And obviously you could use any augment that gives gold. For example, like Raining Gold can be used, Escort Quest, things like that. But pretty much if you get any augment that gives experience, fast 8 is kind of like a no-brainer for those comps. So either you're win streaking early game or you have one of those econ augments and you are able to make it to 8 relatively safely. Next comp up we have is one of the Exodia comps, Corrupts Vampiric Scepter Warwick. If you ever get Corrupted Vampiric Scepter, just hard force this comp, no regrets. Even if you have 0 Warwicks, I've seen people do that and they make it work. Get Warwick 3, get to 6 Vanguard, and he just eats everyone up. You could secondary carry some people, but it doesn't really matter. Like Olaf going to be an obvious choice, maybe a Twitch 3 if you have it. And tank items, if you have like mana items, put them on Tom Kench. Stuff like Protector's Vow, Adaptive Helm, he loves that. Pure tank, maybe you could throw it on like a Mordekaiser. But overall, very good comp. It's just a rare comp to go for because you don't often get the specific artifact item. Next comp up, we have a Spin to Win Wukong. Very similar to the other Jinx build. It's like the same units, obviously, right? But instead of like 2 or 3 stone plates, just put 1 stone plate on him and then go Sterix Gauge plus Bloodthirster. It just makes him a lot more resilient and makes more use of the hero augment. And you could also use Bard as the backline carry. Some people have even used Karma in the past, but Jinx is going to be the most common unit you use. But it obviously depends what items you have. Focus on the Wukong items though. Before I said like, oh, you really want to focus on the Jinx items, but if you're having the hero augment for someone else, you have to focus on that champion. Next build up, we have is Chrono Karma. This comp got nerfed a bit, and if you were ever wondering how a comp changes in strength from one patch to the next, you could always check on the website teamfight.lol. Right now, Chrono is a 4.03 at 6 Chrono, which obviously is still very good, right? But 6 Chrono is pretty hard to get. So 4.03 is not that great, actually. If we compare it to previous patches, like 14.19, it was a 3.71, which is quite a big difference. If you watch my last video, you'll know that every placement is around the difference of 10 to 15 LP. So if we round that to around like 13 LP per placement, so if you average 4th place every single game, which is very good, but a 0.3 difference is quite a large amount because each placement is worth around like 10 to 15 LP. So you could think of it as like every time you play the comp now, compared to last patch, you like lost 4 LP, you know? But it's still pretty good. You just don't like Gigaforce it. You have to play it in like smart spots. So what is a smart spot? Well, obviously if you have Chrono Emblem, that's the only way to play it. So if you get it, it's uncraftable. You have to get it from an augment or from like a wandering trainer. And you need Camille to activate it. So if you get Wandering Trainer Portal, you get Chrono, and you get like an Econ augment early, that's kind of like a sign to say like, hey, maybe I can go for this, because getting Camille, you need to be level 8 with a ton of gold or level 9 with a medium amount of gold. And then it's possible to hit 6 Chrono. You also need good items on your units. So like blue buff for Karma for sure. Frontline bruiser items for Camille. So if you have a bunch of tears and swords, that's another sign to like, hey, maybe I could go for this. But overall, this comp is just like a fast 8. You just go to your team planner, add in all the Chrono units and all the Preserver units, and then just click them when you do your roll down on level 8 when you stabilize. And if you are going 9, I mean, it's the same thing. You just click everything in your team planner. Like there's a step 1, step 2, step 3 on the website if you need to check that out in more detail when you play. Next comp up we have is Hecarim Reroll. This comp got nerfed a bit, but it's still very, very strong if you hit. It's just really hard to hit Hecarim 3. So you're not going to be going this comp that often, but when you do get it, it's going to be pretty solid. We're going to go over Multistriker Reroll in just a bit, but you could combine all the Multistriker Rerolls because it's pretty much the same comp. It's just 7 Multistriker plus Shen. So whether you're playing around like 3-star Jax, 3-star Castan, 3-star Ashe, 3-star Akali, like it's going to be the same exact comp. So you could flex between all of them and share the items between all those comps. But for Hecarim, you want to do a 3-cost reroll, get Hecarim 3-star, put Asterix on him. If you have Unleash the Beast augment, that's the best for this, but it's really hard to get. Next comp up we have is going to be Pyro Varus. Varus is a lot weaker now, but in the Pyro version, he's still very playable. You just need to make sure you have enough gold to get Varus 2-star to actually stabilize. I know that's the same for every Fast 8 comp. Like, obviously, yeah, I want Varus 2, Nasus 2 when I go the Pyro Varus comp. Like, obviously, for the Ryze comp, let's say with portals, you want Ryze 2, you want Taric 2. The difference is in, like, the portal Ryze, if you have, like, Taric 1 and Ryze 1, the comp's still playable. In the Ryze Flex, like Ryze 1, Taric 1, Rakan 1, if it's early stage 4, it's still playable, right? But with the Pyro Varus, the 2-star Varus means a lot more. In one of my friend groups, we make this joke where we compare the damage a unit deals based on like our salaries, and I'm like, oh, my salary is like a Varus 1, and then this other guy who makes a lot of money, I'm like, getting Varus 2 is like making your type of money, right? And then we have a third friend, and then we're like, yeah, his friend is the damage of an Elise 1, but there's a big difference. I'm not going to say the numbers out loud of how much we make, but like Varus 1, Varus 2, huge difference, because especially with Pyro, he just executes everything if he gets it. But obviously for this comp, you need the +1 Pyro emblem. If you drop it on Smolder, he ends up cleaning up fights in the late game, especially if you get him to 2-star. And I'd say like in terms of like late game caps, this comp has like a huge one, because again, like Smolder 2 with the Pyro emblem, he just like shreds through everything in the late game. It's kind of like when you're playing League of Legends, you get the Elder buff. Smolder kind of just does that in TFT as well, if he has the Pyro spat. But next comp up, we have a Shapeshifter Flex. This is another like Varus Smolder build, but you could also play it with Namzi. So you could go 8 Shapeshifter, you could go 6 Shapeshifter. When you want to go Shapeshifter Flex, what you want is Eternal Growth at the start of the game with a Shapeshifter start or getting Shapeshifter Crest. If you get Shapeshifter Crest, you want to go for 8 Shapeshifter as soon as possible. It's like one of the biggest power spikes in the world. Briar 1-star with 8 Shapeshifter, if you feed her, she's going to be tearing through everything. Shapeshifter emblem is really good on Smolder, because not only do you like running the unit because you get Dragon, because Smolder runs into the enemy team like a moron, getting that extra health on your Smolder is really, really nice to get him to survive a lot longer. But Briar 1 stabilize is super, super hard with 8 Shapeshifters. If you want to go for Namzi Reroll, it's pretty viable right now. IE and Giant Slayer are going to be the go-to items. Third item doesn't really matter too much. Some people like the Last Whisper, some people like the Spear of Shojin. I've even seen Deathblade being used, but you need like a ton of swords for that, so it's quite rare. Rageblade, not that great. Rageblade, if you get it, just like item remove it later on in the game and put it on Smolder. But you want some sort of armor penetration in this build. So get like an even shroud on your Elise if you get Elise 3-star, because this is going to be a 1-cost reroll build. So like Namzi, Twitch, Jace, Elise, like get any of them to 3-star. Obviously, Namzi's the most important one, plus one other tank, and you're going to be good to go. But both versions are good. You just see what you're hitting in the early parts of the game. If you want to like win streak early, like obviously you want to level up, so you can't really go for Namzi reroll. But if you have a lot of Namzis at the start, like consider just doing a 1-cost reroll and not leveling up, even if you can win streak with your shapeshifters. What I really like doing with this comp is actually like being kind of low health in the stage 4 carousel, because oftentimes you just get Briar off the carousel if you're first pick. And if you're low health, Briar gets more stats. So it's like a huge carousel swing in a lot of cases. Next build up we have is going to be the Zap Attack Blitzcrank. A lot of different versions of playing Blitzcrank right now. Ziggs might be pretty weak though. I would kind of avoid it. He's one of the worst performing 1-cost units as a reroll, which is kind of sad because he was pretty good before and then they just kept nerfing him over and over, which I feel was undeserved. But probably play the Veigar version right now. That's probably going to be the strongest one. But Blitzcrank is very solid still. He stabilizes super hard in stage 2 if you have items for him. Later on in stage 3 and 4, when you get him to 3-star, he stabilizes there. Then he starts to fall off, but ideally you get some other power users to your team, such as like the Veigar 3. Maybe you level up, play around some 4 and 5 costs and use that for your late game, but he essentially enables you to get to the late game pretty easily, which is what I like a lot about him. Or you just like dominate the early game and then slowly bleed out, get like a 4th. Next comp up we have is Sugarcraft. Only play this on portals where you get a lot of free items, so like component anvils, the artifact anvil one, like any of the anvils or like scuttle puddle. It really benefits this team comp a lot because you get a lot more Sugarcraft stacks. But pretty much you just have to remember to put all your item components on your units. It doesn't have to be on a Sugarcraft unit, it could be on anyone on your team, and then you are able to help them build the cake to get to 7 layers. After you get to 7 layers, the really big payout is at like 2,000, but it takes a while to get there, which again is why you need a portal where you get a ton of items. And on every single augment choice, try to get an item augment, because again, it helps you stack a lot more. In terms of who to play with this comp, there's honestly a lot of things you could try. You could do like an Olaf. Fiora is going to be the most popular one because it pairs up with Gwen really well. All the preservers are really good. You could do like Tom Kench for Vanguard. Like there are a lot of different things you could play with this comp. So just keep that in mind when you are playing this. But highly situational comp, but when it works, it really works. Multistriker Reroll, finally. This one is a comp I really recommend for beginners, because it's super easy to play and it's very powerful. And honestly, since a lot of pro players don't play Multistriker Reroll, I'm guessing it's not going to be as contested in your rating. We could also just check right now. I'm going to go to 3-star average placement. We have like Ashe at the bottom here, 4.64 in Master Plus, and like 32% 3-star rate with 0.4 play rate. If we go to Gold, okay, wow, she's played a lot. She's played 1.27, and then 3-star rate is around the same, but then she's averaging a 3.77 as a 3-star. Holy cow. Big difference, right? Like that's a full placement difference. So like a lot of these reroll comps, they work really well in lower ratings, but not so well in higher ratings. But this comp, honestly, it's like very easy to play. You play the same board no matter what you hit, and you could even like flex between your different carries. So like, let's say you're playing the game, you're going Multistriker Reroll and you want to go Ashe and Jax, but then you look around, you built a Rageblade, and then you see someone else also going for Ashe and Jax, and you're like, oh man, like I'm contested. You could always switch to Kassadin, you know, like Kassadin can use the Rageblade, and he's also a very solid comp too. So you could switch from Ashe Reroll to like Kassadin Reroll, or you could even do the Hecarim Reroll that we talked about earlier. Of course, you need different items though. But both these versions work a lot. You want to do a 1-cost reroll or 2-cost reroll, and then hopefully you just hit. You're going to be playing 5 Multistriker for most of the game because Camille is hard to get. And when you're re-rolling, you often don't have enough gold to get a legendary unit. So if you ever get Multistriker Crest, it makes the game a lot easier. So always go for it. If you see a pan on the carousel, take it. I think it's pan and bow that makes Multistriker emblem, and your comp gets that much stronger. By the way, right now the best items on Kassadin Reroll is going to be Quicksilver, Bloodthirster, and Titan's Resolve. For some reason, Rageblade and Archangels, they used to be really good on Kassadin, but right now, like, Titans is, like, by far the best. I already checked for you, but you can check on the Explorer if you really want to do it yourself. Just type in Kassadin, do 3-star, add the Quicksilver, add the BT, and then you'll see that, like, Titans 3.96, Rageblade 4.73, Archangels 4.43, like, yeah. You want the Titans. It's a pretty big difference. Next comp up we have is going to be the Eldritch comp. Only play this if you get some sort of Eldritch augment, like School Mascot or Eldritch Crest. There are two different versions of this. There's like the Syndra version where you go for Syndra 3-star. You just get a lot of items for Syndra to help her cast a lot. So like Adaptive Helm, Spear Shojin, Nashor's Tooth, Red Buff, anything that gives attack speed or mana is going to be really powerful on her. If you want to be extra fancy, and let's say you built Spear Shojin, Nashor's, and Adaptive Helm on her early game, in the late game, that build kind of sucks. It's mainly used for the early game. You could always item remove her, put the Adaptive Helm on like your Nami or one of your tanks, and then put like a Rabadon's Death Cap or Jeweled Gauntlet on her. Essentially, in the early game, you want to stack your Syndra, but in the late game, you want her to deal damage. So there are a bunch of little tricks you could do in this Syndra reroll comp. If you don't want to do Syndra reroll, you could always play around your Nami. Nami with 3 mage from like Galio, which also gives Vanguard with Mordekaiser, plus someone else. It doesn't have to be Nora. Nora's the best one. That's why I put Nora in there, but any mage will do. Just get 3 mages to activate so that Nami can use her ability over and over. Blue buff plus Morello is going to be a great item combination on her because she hits a lot of units. And in the Eldritch comp, I like adding in an Archangels on her to finish the build off, because you have a bunch of mediocre tanks in the build, which buy a little time, but then obviously the big Eldritch that you summon is going to buy a lot of time for that Archangels to stack, and hopefully she could clear everyone up in her final cast. But 2-cost reroll or standard leveling for this depends on which comp you go for. Next one up we have is Arcana Varus. This comp got nerfed a lot, like I mean a lot. It used to be the best comp, now it's like low A tier. I was debating putting this in the B tier, but I think low A tier is fine for now. I think it's gonna be better once people realize this comp isn't as good as it was before. So if you do go for this, you should theoretically be uncontested. Obviously, other people might take your Varuses. Maybe the Shapeshifter comps take your Varus. Maybe the Pyro comps take your Varus. But one good news is that the Frost comp also borderline B tier comp right now, which also uses Varus. So no one should be going for this too often. So if it's uncontested, try it. Go for the Arcana build. It's still playable, but you need to hit the comp for free. I would not play this if I had to pay a lot for the comp. Like if I have to pay like 80, 90 gold to hit everything, like I don't think that's worth it. I'd rather be playing Kalista with the 80 and 90 gold, or maybe like the Ryze Preserver build. But if I play this and I hit it in like 50 to 70 gold, then, you know, like sure, why not? Sometimes you just natural everything, but it's the same build as before, but Arcana got nerfed so much. Like Tahm Kench, his health that you get is so much less. Hecarim, the AD that you get is a lot less depending on who you chose before. If you listen to bunnymuffins.lol, you would use the Tahm Kench because we have this little Arcana indicator on him. But it's the same build, like double IE plus Shojin or Red Buff. AP items on Xerath, tank items on Tahm Kench, mana items on Tahm Kench are preferred, and the Even Shroud's preferred as well. Next comp we have is a Blaster Vanguard Reroll. This one's Ezreal, Hwei, and Mordekaiser. It's still playable. It's not doing as well as it was before. I'd say Ezreal's a bit worse now, but Hwei is a bit better, but I don't think Hwei's theirs to like actually dominate yet. There might be a different build, like maybe you want to play Hwei in a Frost build. Maybe there's a Frost reroll build that you can use with Ezreal. I haven't really seen that too much, but maybe someone can try it and let me know how it goes. But you want to do a 3-cost reroll for this and play 4 Blaster, 4 Vanguard, Frostfire, Olaf, Varus. It's seen better days. Like winter is coming. This augment used to be really good, but now it's averaging like a 4.5. All the emblem augments got nerfed a bunch. So it's still playable. Again, if no one's going Varus, no one's going Olaf, and you hit the comp in like 50 to 70 gold instead of like 90 gold, then yeah, sure. And by the way, when I say like spend 50 gold, like you know how sometimes you fast state, you do a roll down on like stage 4-1 or 4-2, you roll like 50 gold, and then come stage 5, you roll down again, another 50 gold, that's like 100 gold. That's kind of what I'm counting here. So like if you hit the whole comp in like your first roll down or like your first roll down and a half, then I'd say like the comp is worth it. But if you have to do 2 roll downs to hit this comp, then it's probably not worth it because it's not strong enough to justify that. And especially when we have so many other comps to play, like I can't really push you into these other comps, even though they are still playable, which is why I'm leaving them in the A tier for now. Like they're not horrible to go for, and you still can win games on them, but I'm just not going to go into the game planning to go into Frost Olaf. Katarina reroll, Warriors got nerfed a bunch. Kogmaw Jinx reroll, like they changed Kogmaw a little bit, but people haven't found a build that really works yet. Nyla, Akali, again, Warriors got nerfed, so you don't really want to play those. Fast 9ing still works, but it's just really situational. That's why it's in the B tier. Build difference sucks. It's like 4.8 right now. Syndra Cassiopeia reroll, decent, playable. You need a perfect start for this, but you can pull it off. I believe in you. Witchy Wallop, probably a pass. And then the C tiers, yeah, we're not even going to look at the C tiers because they're so bad. You could look at it in the top summary here. Again, this is all available on the website bunnymuffins.lol/meta. If I had to one trick a comp though, I'd probably just go Faerie Kalista every single game. It's pretty strong. It's not overly OP, so there aren't too many people going for it. Obviously, people still like going Preserver, so it's hard to hit the Rakan, but that's life, you know? TFT sometimes is like that. Like if you one trick the Ryze Flex build, like you still have to hit the Preservers as well, right? The most popular version of it is literally called Ryze Preserver. Some people call it Ryze Scholar because it also uses 4 Scholar, but whatever you want to call it, you want the Rakan, you know? You can always check like how contested a unit is by typing in whatever champion you want or whatever cost you want to look at, and then look at play rate. Like Rakan's 1.65. I think that's actually a lot lower. Oh wait, let's go back to Master Plus. 2.65, holy cow. I think that's still lower than last patch though. I think it was at like 3 something. Yeah, 3.29 last patch. Absolutely bonkers stuff. So fewer people are playing Rakan, but he's still highly contested. It's like if you get the President's Trophy in hockey, you could get it with like 110 points, or you could get it with like 130 points. You know, like you're still first place, but one season you did it with like a lot more dominance, and another season you still won it, but not as dominant. You know, it's like Rakan got nerfed, but he's still the most played unit. Absolutely bonkers. But let me know down in the comments what your favorite comps are going to be for this patch. Like obviously Mage Reroll is going to be played a ton. There's going to be like 2 Mage players, I think, every single game. But 1 cost Reroll can support 2 players, so that's one thing to keep in mind. I'm probably going to stick to the 4 cost comps. I really like playing the Kalista comp a lot, and I'll dabble in a little Ryze, but not too much. For some reason, me and Ryze just don't get along. But if I get a good Mage Reroll game, of course I'm going to take it. So if you have a weird approach to the patch, you could share it over in our Discord with other players. All the links for that are in the description below. And also, don't forget to check out Warpforge as well. But that's going to be it for me today. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time.